Hobo camp. 5 men sat huddled around a low burning fire, orange and black shadows dancing on their faces as they drank weak coffee out of tin cans. Jim Smoky Phillips, Elmon Ink Williams, Bo Weaver Jack, Crack Shot Sackett, and Chattanooga Red Barker. 5 of the estimated 200,000 men and boys roaming the countryside that year. Smoky Phillips looked up but said nothing, and the rest of them said the same. They were tired and weary that night, because that cold nip in the night air meant the start of another roar. Harkness, Winter, and Smoky knew he would have to be starting south soon, with great flocks of geese, just as he had done for so many years now. He was born on a frosty morning, back up in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. His daddy, a knobbly-legged man, a second-generation moonshiner, who had fallen in love with his own product, made the fatal mistake of marrying a good woman, a plain country girl whose life revolved around the Pine Grove Free Will Baptist Church. Most of Smoky's childhood had been spent sitting on hard wooden benches for hours with his little sister, Bernice, at all-day scenes and foot washings. In the regular church services, his mother had been one of the women who would occasionally stand up and start babbling out of her head in an unknown tongue. Eventually, as she became more and more filled with the Spirit, his father became less so and stopped going to church altogether. He told his children, "I believe in God, but I don't think you have to go crazy to prove it." Then one spring, when Smoky was 8, things got worse. His mother said that the Lord had told her that her husband was evil and the devil possessed, and she turned him into the revenue agents. Smoky remembered the day, then brought his daddy down the path from the stair with a gun at his back. As he passed by his wife, he looked at her, dumbfounded, and said, "Woman, don't you know what you've done? You've took the bread right out of your own mouth." It was the last Smoky ever saw of him. After his father left, his mother really went off the deep end and got mixed up with a bunch of backwoods holy roller snake handlers. One night, after an hour of ranting and beating the Bible, the red-faced, wild-haired preacher got his barefoot congregation all excited. They were all chanting and stomping their feet when suddenly he reached into a potato sack and pulled out 2 huge rattlesnakes and started waving them around in the air, lost in the spirit. Smoky froze in his seat and squeezed his sister's hand. The preacher was dancing around, calling out for believers to take up the serpent and cleanse them sore in the face of Abraham. When his mother ran up, grabbed one of the snakes away from him, and looked it right in the face, she began babbling in the unknown tongue, the whole time staring into snake's yellow eyes. Everybody in the room began to sway and moan as she started to walk around the room with it. People began falling down on the floor, jerking and screaming and rolling around on the pews and up and down the aisles. The place was in a frenzy while she babbled on. Hassel, Halamla, Samia. Before he knew what was happening, his little sister Bernice broke away from him and ran up to her mother and pulled her by the hem of her dress. "Mama, don't!" Still wide-eyed in a trance, she glanced down at her child for one split second, and in that second, the writer launched and struck the woman in the side of her face. She looked back at the snake, stunned, and he struck again, fast and hard this time, striking her in the neck, the fangs puncturing her jugular vein. She dropped the angry serpent with a thud, and it crawled contemptuous away down the aisle. His mother looked around the room that was now as silent as death, with a surprised look on her face, and as her eyes glazed over, she sank slowly to the floor. She was dead in less than a minute. In that moment, his uncle had picked up Smoky and was headed out the door. Bernice went to live with a neighbor, and Smoky stayed at his uncle's house. Then when he was 13, he headed down the railroad tracks toward nowhere, and never came back. The only thing he took was a photograph of his sister and him. He would take it out every once in a while. There are them were in the fading photograph, with their lips and cheeks painted pink, a little chubby girl with bands and a pink ribbon tied around her head, wearing a tiny string of pearls. And he sat just behind her, his brown hair slicked down, his cheek pressed close to hers. He often wondered how Bernice was doing and thought he'd looked her up one of these days, if he ever got back on his feet. When he was about 20 or so, he lost the picture when some railroad bar detective kicked him off a freight into a cold yellow river somewhere in Georgia. And now he hardly ever thought about her except when he happened to be on a train passing through the Smoky Mountains at night, on his way to somewhere else. This morning, Smoky Phillips was on a mixed train from Georgia, headed for Florida. He had not eaten anything for 2 days and remembered that his friend Elmer Williams had told him that there were 2 women running a place right outside of Birmingham who were always good for a meal or two. On the way down, he'd seen the name of the cafe written on the walls of several boxcars. So when he saw the signs Whistle Stop, Alabama, he jumped off. He found the place across the tracks, just like Elmer had said. It was a small green building with a green and white awning under a Coca-Cola sign that said, "The Whistle Stop Cafe." He went around the back and knocked on the screen door. A little black woman was busy frying chicken and slicing green tomatoes. She glanced at him and called out, "Miss E.G." Pretty soon, a good-looking, tall blonde with freckles and curly hair came to the door, wearing a clean white shirt and men's trousers. She looked to be in her early 20s. He looked off his hat. "Excuse me, ma'am, I was wondering if you had an odd job or something I might do. I have had a run of some bad luck lately." E.G. looked at the man in the worn-out dirty jacket, frayed brown shirt, and cracked leather laceless shoes, and knew he wasn't lying. She opened the door and said, "Come on in, fella. I think we can find something for you." E.G. asked what his name was. "Smoky, man." She turned to the woman behind the counter. Smoky hadn't seen a neat and clean woman in months. And this one was the prettiest woman he had seen in his entire life. She was wearing a dirty Swiss organdy dress and had her auburn hair pulled back with a red ribbon. "Ruth, this is Smoky, and he's gonna be doing some work for us." Ruth looked at him and smiled. "That will be fine. Nice to meet you." E.G. pointed to the men's room. "Why don't you go in there and freshen up, and then come have a bite to eat?" "Yes, ma'am." The bathroom was big and had a light bulb hanging down from the ceiling, and when he pulled it, he saw that there was a big stand-up claw foot top over in the corner, with a black rubber stopper on a chain. On the sink, already laid out, was a razor and a dish of shaving soap with a brush. As he looked at himself in the mirror, he felt ashamed that Dan had seen him so dirty. But he had not had more than a speaking acquaintance with soap for quite a while now. He took the big bar of brown Oxford soap and tried to scrub all the grime and coal dust off his face and hands. He had not had a drink in 24 hours, and his hands shook so bad he was not able to get a clean shave, but he did the best he could. After he had splashed himself with the Old Spice shaving lotion and combed his hair with the ice comb he had found on the shelf above the sink, he came back out into the cafe. Iggy and Ruth had set a place for him at the table. He sat down to the plate of fried chicken, black-eyed peas, turnip greens, fried green tomatoes, cornbread, and iced tea. He picked up his fork and tried to eat. His hands were still shaking and he was not able to get food to his mouth. He spilled his tea all over his shirt. He had been hoping they were not watching, but in a minute the blonde woman said, "Smokey, come on, let's take a walk outside." He got his hat and used his napkin, thinking he was being thrown out. Yes. She walked him out behind the cafe, where there was a field. "You're a pretty nervous fellow, aren't you? I'm sorry about spilling my food in their mine, but to tell you the honest-to-God truth, well, I'll just head on, but thank you anyway." Iggy reached in her apron pocket and pulled out a half-pint bottle of Old Draw whiskey and handed it to him. He was a mighty appreciative man. He said, "God bless you for a cent, man," and then sat down on a log out by the shed. While Smokey was calming his nerves, she talked to him. "See that big plot of empty land over there?" He looked over. Yes. "Years ago, that used to be the most beautiful little lake in Whistle Stop in the summer, with swimming and eating fish, and you could go for a boat ride if you wanted to." She shook her head sadly. "I sure do miss it. I sure do." Smokey looked at the vacant land. "What happened to it? Did it dry up?" She lit a cigarette for him. "No, it was worse than that. One November, a big flock of dogs, about 40 or more, landed right smack in the middle of that lake. And while they were sitting there that afternoon, a fluke thing happened. The temperature dropped so fast that the whole lake froze over, as solid as a rock, in a matter of 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Just like that." Smokey was amazed at the thought. "You don't mean it?" "Yep. Well, I reckon it must have killed them dogs." Idris said, "Why? Hell no, they just flew off and took the lake with them. That lake's somewhere in Georgia, to this very day." He turned and looked at her, and when he realized she was pulling his leg, his blue eyes cranked up and he started laughing so hard that he started to cough at the same time, and she had to bind him on the back. He was still wiping his eyes when they went back in the cafe, where his dinner was waiting. When he sat back down to eat, it was warm. Someone had kept it in the oven for him. "Oh, where is my wandering boy tonight? The boy of his mother's pride. Oh, he's counting the ties, with a bed on his back, or else he's dinning a ride. Oh, where is my boy tonight?"